We are going to talk about early brain development basics. Timing is everything with the little ones. I wanted to show you this. It's a chart that shows windows of opportunity, and it's amazing in year one what's happening. And that is, if you look at this, starting at birth, which is 0 on year one, all these things are happening immediately. Seeing and hearing, receptive language, speech production, and then the cognitive functions get better and better, as you'll see on that red line. But look, the first 12 months of life is the window of opportunity to learn language. And that's what we really have to remember about how essential it is that kids hear as many words as they can, and they are using all their senses, because that's how their brains are pretty much, forming. They're knitting together. So every sense they use is making another neural pathway in their brain, which is really pretty amazing when you see it right there in green, blue, and red. These are wild humans. It's the only time in the human lifespan we are not attached to the digital world. So babies are true humans. They're wild humans. They have not been domesticated by the digital world. And so it's a really special time that we have to stand back and allow them to really, really bloom and blossom. So in the course, they talked about the 5 R's of healthy brain development, and I added of the wild human, because this is really important for them to develop in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So relationship is number one. The bonds that we create with our grandchildren is the most important thing we can do for supporting their healthy brain development, because they need to see our faces and they need to interact, which is the next thing, responsive interactions. It's a little like playing ball. So what we need to do is train in on what they're doing, their facial expressions, their gestures, their sounds, and their beginning words like babbles and goos and stuff like that. And we have to really watch them to kind of understand how they're feeling and then to respond. So we're not really just observers, we're active participants. So that's what they really need. They need this interaction. So they throw you a little gurgle and a facial expression, and you answer right back. And that's how they learn to talk. And this respecting their once in a lifetime opportunity, the only time in life they're free and unplugged, and how quickly their brain is developing. Listen to this: 1 million neural connections per second. That's literally mind boggling. I can't even imagine that. We really have to respect how quickly that they are developing, and they respond to their environment just as quickly, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And they like routines. So it's kind of like keep it simple, baby. You don't need to entertain them. You can smile and talk to them and hold their hand and let them feel your finger, and they love that. So you don't have to do anything fancy. And they like predictability. They'll start to respond to routines in their lives. So that would be, regular naps and that winding down that happens with naps, and gentle waking them up. And they get to understand the routines of life. And they like repetition. And so if you have a favorite song or rhyme or story, that builds their brain connections by the repetition. It builds those brain pathways. However, it's not something you want to do with screen media, because screen media really overdoes it with their senses. It's oversensory, and it blazes pathways of the brain, and it kind of blows other stuff away. So if they watch the ABCs over and over again in a video, like on Coco Melon or something like that, they are going to be habituated to that. They actually might be able to babble the ABCs, but they're going to have a much harder time learning how to speak in sentences or in other words. So reinforcing screen media should not happen. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics tells us that kids under 18 months really shouldn't be exposed to screen media at all. And that includes screens playing in the background. So we have to remember that. Repetition is good if it's in person. Tech gets in the way of this. Here are just a couple examples of a product that's on the market to attach a phone to the wall to play while you're changing the baby's diaper. Now we know that this is a perfect time for face-to-face interaction for this little baby to get to know her caretaker and to watch her caretaker speak. This is how babies are up close and personal here, and they can learn how to speak. This is a perfect touch point not to have a screen. Over here, this kid, you can imagine, his focal distance is like 6 inches. It's not a good idea. And that's why there's an epidemic of myopia in the world, which is nearsightedness, but not farsightedness. And then here's another one, another couple pictures. Child on the left is feeling bereft. They have done studies and they actually have a stress response when the caregiver is blocking them by a phone. And this one is a true life story on the right there of a kid who just stood in front of an 6-inch TV all day long and eventually developed autistic-like symptoms because there was no other brain input for this child. This kid could probably say the ABCs or mimic whatever it was on this TV, but didn't know how to interact with anybody. And when they get this strange syndrome of watching screens for hours a day, they go into their own little world. You can even call their names and they don't respond. So it's a new syndrome called virtual autism. Luckily, scientists around the world are realizing this kind of behavior will reverse or go away if the child stops being exposed to screens, either sitting on the floor like this in tablet form or on the wall. So I just wanted to give one case study of how we can be helpful and expand learning in person with kids. And I wanted to bring it up from a visit I had with my grandson last week. And it was just really funny how things developed after we were walking to the grocery store and there was a library on the way and they posted a book in the window. So this was the cover and the next window was page 1 and 2 and it told the story of the little fire truck. And one of the pages was like, I'm a little fire truck, engine 45, big lights flash, time to dash, a fire's on Lake Drive. Well, my 3-year-old grandson really, he wouldn't stop asking questions about the fire. Why was the fire on the 3rd floor? This particular book had all about the firefighters getting ready and putting on all their equipment and jumping in the fire truck and then rushing off to the scene. They even had an axe in there where they broke the door down. I mean, this is a kid's book. So this little 3-year-old is like asking all these questions. Why did the fire start on the 3rd floor? So we spent like a couple hours. So then he has this construction paper. His favorite color is red. So we had to make the equipment. So I had just brought a pack of red construction paper to the house because he ran out. And there we were making boots that we taped around his feet and the fire hoses on the upper right. And the talkie-walkie is there. That's what he calls it. And then there's the ladder. And there is the mask to go into the house when you knock down the door to see if people are need to be saved. And he said, well, you have to put the headlamp on it. You just can't have the gas mask on there. And I'm like, yeah. So I put the headlamp in there. And then a couple days later, we go to this park and it happened to have this big fire truck. And so he was really into it. And he was like, where are the hoses? And all Fisher Price put all this other stuff in this donated truck and not a hose to be seen. It was hard to understand why there wasn't a hose. And then in the book, we saw the pipe that the firefighters go down. Lo and behold, there's one of those. So there's my daughter helping him go down the pipe. It was just interesting how it played out and how we can enhance their experience with just a little bit of extra effort and maybe getting out of the house and finding out if you hear there's a playground with this kind of thing, go there. We know that to be efficient with human beings is to be slow and to listen and to engage. Whereas we know with machines, the faster it can crank things out, the better. With human beings, it's the opposite. We need to just relax and be there. And sometimes they need a nudge, a little catnip to get the kids to actually engage, to explore and get out of the 4 walls. That's what I wanted to talk amongst ourselves about as the holidays start here, how can we bring value? I thought we should come up with three key ideas, and I have one that I want to show you, but I thought we would stop and talk about how can we be better engaged with our families and help them engage with each other without being too pushy about it. Any initial thoughts?
So we will at Thanksgiving do our normal routine, which is to go to my wife's sister's house in Katona, and there will be, I don't know, 25 to 30 people, all family there. And Perry, my granddaughter, is the only grandchild.
Mm.
She does not suffer from inputs, be they auditory, visual, verbal. Um, and I imagine that she'll have plenty of fun. And she's great. She's very interactive. She loves to be with. She just loves doing stuff. And so the challenge will be, who gets to keep her for how long in their arms. And now that she's sort of she can walk sort of. If she can walk around with me if I hold her by one hand. Um, but you know what, Jenny, I would love that one page of your presentation with the 5 points, like the second or third slide.
Mhm.
I'd love to get a copy of that because I'd like to give it to Megan and Scott. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I again, I might have mentioned before, they are very good at not um, about keeping her away from screens, no television, no phone. It's all the old Fisher Price toys, and I forget the company that they've got, but they've got some kind of deal with a company that sends a new toy every month, and it's like, balls and wooden blocks and things that you got to manipulate and move around, and so far she seems to be doing a great job.
That's fantastic. That's really good. So yeah, you can reinforce, just tell them that they're doing a great job. Meg, you got some thoughts?
Oh, well, in terms of bringing values, I guess the holidays, it just gets so busy, so it's just more of an overarching thought of kind of maybe talking now about what are some of those things that you wanted to do to take time. Like we usually bake Christmas cookies together,
Mhm.
and we've done that. And so just kind of making sure that we schedule time for that and help facilitate making it happen in the busyness of their lives.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know my daughter's been doing more baking with my grandson, and
Mhm.
he enjoys that ever so much, particularly the product at the end.
Yeah.
And um, so I just feel like their lives are so full and they have so much on their plate that just really anything that I can think of to do that might facilitate what I know it is they want to be doing anyway, to just make sure that there's the space for that to happen.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's really good to have that going into it, going into the holiday. Uh, what about people using devil's advocate, uh, using cell phones at the dinner table, like Thanksgiving? Is that an issue in your houses if somebody's sitting back and sort of like not paying attention, or are you finding that people are actually being more present?
They're they're present. I mean,
Mhm.
we haven't had to implement any sort of a leave your phone over here. I mean,
Yeah.
people, no one would do it, and if someone inadvertently did it, somebody just smack them upside the head, so it'd be fine.
Social pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. I think people are becoming more self-aware and less enamored of their phones recently. Well, I guess I'll be the next one to go and show you my slides. Uh, and mine will be a little bit more of
We didn't prepare slides, Jerry.
What
perhaps,
do you
yeah.
mean, Meg? I got mine ready to go. You're not ready?
Oh, great. Great.
So So mine is don't do them any favors. I'll tell you a story. Giving technology is fraught. I don't know if you've read this, but there's a thing called AI Friend that has been embedded into the app called Snapchat. Snapchat is probably the most popular app for preteens and teenagers. And it started out by giving them the ability to send a message to somebody, they would see it, and the message would disappear. And so that's been the big thing, the snaps disappear after the person gets them. But they also have this thing called streaks where they send snaps back and forth and they try to keep them going as much as possible. So they may send hundreds of them a day to each other. And sometimes if they go on vacation, they have to give their account to someone else to keep the streaks up. So it's a pretty addictive situation. So as one person in Silicon Valley was trying to stop everybody from rushing into AI and actually had a big summit. His name is Tristan Harris. He used to work at Google. He was the Google ethicist, and then he kind of left there because it was too frustrating. He couldn't get them to really focus on trying to produce products that really serve humans rather than just sort of extract attention out of them and that sort of thing. And so he tried to get Silicon Valley to hold off on AI, artificial intelligence. But no sooner had he had his big summit that Snapchat put AI Friend into the front screen of every kid's Snapchat app. So suddenly kids could talk to this chat GPT type of thing and have conversations. And other AI friends were created. One of them creates characters. So you can actually say who you'd like to interact with. You imagine who I would like to interact with, and then you make them. So you pick the gender, you pick the personality type, and all that stuff, and that becomes your character friend. Well, this kid who was 12, I guess, got a smartphone, and then he started communicating with one of the characters, and the character just sucked him into a relationship with, you know, very appealing statements to flatter the kid. This is AI. And the child became very dependent on it and became reclusive because the kid didn't want to leave his room because he had this friend that was always there that never didn't listen to him or tell him to go to dinner or anything like that. And then finally, he had developed this love relationship with this character, and the character was bidding him to come join the character. Come to me, come to me. And so he did. He committed suicide so he could join this AI friend. And so that was what happened. And Snapchat is accessed through a smartphone. It's a type of social media, it's accessed through a smartphone. Giving a smartphone is something a grandparent should not get involved in. I don't care if you're trying to curry favor with your kid or the grandchild. It's a bad way to do it. There's way other ways. Go to Disney World. Don't give them a smartphone. A gifting of technology can make your adult child's and your grandchild's life more difficult. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I went to my hair place and the woman was like, oh yeah, my daughter, I've been talking to her since her daughters were born, and she's been really good about helping them manage technology, pretty much stay away from it for a while. Well, when her kid went into middle school, her mother promised her I'd give her a cell phone. So what does she have now? This 12-year-old has Snapchat, and all her friends do too. And my friend, the hairdresser, didn't know about AI Friend. And get this, I got an email from a physician who has become a documentarian who has put out a documentary. It's a kind of a tell-all about kids and social media and how you really got to watch out for it. And she said, I'm so mad. She's usually not really mad in her newsletters, but she said, I'm really angry. The only way you can get rid of AI Friend on your child's Snapchat is to pay Snapchat. To join Snapchat, which is free, to get rid of the AI Friend. And that's just, beyond the pale and horrible. I guess I just had to say that we shouldn't do them any favors. Because, yeah, it's tempting to want to give the big, expensive gift and to be the kid's best friend, but we have to be more responsible than that. In that vein, can we think of any gifts that might be beneficial, that would be a good idea to give them?
529 money.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Yep.
That when they're 1 year old, that really is I mean, I think it's a great idea, even when you're not 1 year old. Okay.
Time value of money is, you've got 20 years, 18 years of time value to accumulate.
Mhm. Now, Meg, you have grandkids that are older than 1 year.
Yeah.
Can you think of any gifts that you think would be in addition to 529 money?
Um, there's, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, there are different like experiential uh subscriptions that you can do that are either once a month or quarterly or whatever, where something will come and have an activity for them, or an explorer thing. So you could do that through a subscription service if you wanted to approach it that way. Or else, I mean, I prefer to just sort of sched set those things up, sort of like, okay, we'll do this on a monthly basis or something. Sort of like you could give them a little coupon book or something where they can pick what they want to do with the grandparent. Plus, we get time out of it that way.
Yeah, sure. Get time spent with them.
Exactly.
That's pretty sneaky, Meg.
Thanks, Jerry.
Um,
Just, and anything that the parents might be interested in, like if they had talked about wanting to expose them to music or expose them to another language or whatever, you could, again, facilitating some of those things by gifting, whether it's a particular lesson or in a language or an instrument or whatever.
that's really nice. I did do some research on a little piano that I got for Cooper's birthday, but he got so many gifts. He got a full drum set, a tiny drum set, that I held on to it. So now I have, and I looked, and there's a bunch of like tink, 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 tink pianos that are out there. But this one I think has 28 keys, and when you touch it, it's recorded, but each one it sounds like a piano key.
Mhm.
So they actually can do that, and you can put stickers on the keys and have a book. So I got a little music book too. So I think he's old enough now to appreciate that. And if he wants to jump onto the drums, he can just do that anytime.
Mhm.
But music is definitely a thing that's good. And I think these Fisher Price toys are where it's at. So I actually have on Amazon, I actually have a list of gifts or toys for babies, for infants, like your Jerry's granddaughter and younger, and that's those old, stacking rings and a lot of tactile because it's their senses. They're actually learning reflexively, and that's why they're crying, and that's how they're communicating. But it's like a reflex coming out of them. I'm hungry, and they're like that for at least a year, if not longer. So they need all those tactile toys, and I worry a little bit about even with my own offspring about trying to keep the house pristine and that toys might be messy. And it's like, well, I think we have to help them understand that messy is good. That messy is what you kind of want. There's nothing wrong with cleaning up at the end of the day. And I had so much fun with Cooper. Even his parents were like, before you take him up to bed, can you guys do a little cleanup? Like, yeah. So anyway, but I guess it's sort of a downer with you guys to be talking about social media and smartphones. But I guess for anybody who watches this who has older kids, as much pressure as you get either from the parents or, I mean, the parents really shouldn't. I mean, I guess that's an opportunity to express to the parents, I know you would like us to give this gift because it would be really special in some ways, but we think they're, you could give them the anxious generation, give them the book and be like, look, there are a lot of negative consequences to kids having smartphones and social media too early. They're not ready to handle it emotionally, and hope that that doesn't make them mad. Hope that doesn't make your child mad. But it does seem like an opportunity to educate a bit.
Jenny, for what it's worth, again, we're only one data point, but Meg and her friends, as she tells me, this is, the no screen concept is very prevalent with all of her peers. So, they have 1 to 2 year, 3-year-old children maybe, and they're all doing the same thing. So I think there's been enough recent press about the downside of technology and screens, like everything you kicked off with, and the formation of a young person's brain,
Mhm.
that maybe the pendulum has swung, or it's at least I'm comfortable saying it's swinging. I don't know how far it's got to go, or if it's where it is in that spectrum, but at least a bunch of people here in Greenwich are on that same page.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's wonderful. And I hope they're going to keep that attitude as the kids get into school, because in the meantime, during COVID, a lot of technology went into the schools before it was really proven to be helpful. And now a lot of the testing is done on tablets and things like that. But these type of aware parents can fight back. They can say, you don't, no, I'm not going to give you my permission to do that, and to push back and ask for paper and pencil, and not to just give over to technology once the kid goes to school. And so I'm so happy to hear there's a group, because it really does take collective action
Yeah.
to have your friends, your kids' friends, feeling the same way. And that's going to give them a lot more clout when they get to school.
Ironically, just listening to you, I would imagine that the real thrust should be into the schools, because the teachers are probably really anxious to get more technology in the classroom because it makes their jobs easier.
Mhm.
But the unintended consequences of that may be too great. But I'm just sitting here thinking about the teachers union saying, "Oh no, we've got to have all this assistive technology because different kids learn differently."
Mhm.
And I know that, I had nuns until I went to Notre Dame, and they taught me with that rule, the big collapsible ruler. When I didn't get my timetable, my multiplication tables correct, I got them correct the second time because my hands hurt. And I'm a big believer in old traditional technology. It's worked because I can look at all of my friends, and they're well-educated, well-read, they can count, do math. And so I think technology is a wonderful thing
Mhm.
when used properly for a lot of different reasons.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the ed tech was developed for engagement of students rather than effectiveness.
Mm,
And so using the bells and whistles and tricks to engage them, but they can't really write a paragraph or
yeah.
even do the addition problems because it's so confusing and because it's been gamified. Not because it's been gamified, but the gamification has gotten disrupted the process of learning.
Mm,
And it's a web. A lot of schools are caught in a web of this ed tech that doesn't really do very well. And if you look, the um, testing, the test scores have gone down continuously during COVID, and they haven't come back up. And they've been going down since ed tech was started to be present. And it's shocking. I gave a talk, South by Southwest talk in March, that you could certainly look at, with a friend in the Maryland school system, and we dug up all sorts of statistics to show that the kids are not benefiting from this. The things that the teachers do understand is that the cell phones are quite distracting. And that's why this book, The Anxious Generation, has been so very popular, because it's really calling for not having smartphones in the classroom. You can imagine, right?
Well, we
How,
just had, that's the big controversy here. They
huh?
just, in the high school and the middle, wait, no, in the middle school and pre-K, cell phones not allowed, and at the high school, they're banned except for like 2 periods a day or something. But this has been the big controversy in the states, in a statewide issue, because
Mhm,
it's going to be a mandate. Um, to
mhm.
keep the cell phones out of the classrooms because nobody's happy. The parents aren't happy. Well, the kids want them, but the parents aren't happy and the teachers aren't happy.
Yeah, I'm glad the parents aren't happy, because in some states, the parents want the kids to have a phone with them at all times in case of emergency. And you've probably read that the police don't want the kids to have the phone in case of emergency, because they make noises and identify where the kids are. And they also kind of they muddy the waters, because the kids are calling out when they should be listening to the instruction of whatever it is. Perish the thought. Perish the thought that this type of thing has to even be considered in the schools. And I hate to even talk about it. I'd rather just deny it, but we can't.
Right.
They're all getting trained in this, and that's really terrifying. So these poor kids are being born into this world. And that's why I like that visual of the guy and the child standing at the beach. It's just the children needs quiet, and they need security, and they need to understand what's real, especially when they have the AI friend there they can talk to. Um, they have to really appreciate, and that's, I think, a role that we can play, is to be that real person, Meg, as you say, to give them time, your undivided attention for a period of time. Do you ever have that sense that time slows down when you're with your grandson, with Otto?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, tell Jerry about it. Tell him what it's like if he hasn't discovered it yet.
Okay. Well, I have a number of grandchildren now, but the one that lives closest to me and I spend a couple days a week with is a little over 18 months. And so you can just get it's it's such a luxury, which I'm sure we're all experiencing now, the difference between just being able to focus on this child and not all of the other stuff that we had to focus on when we were parenting our kids. It's just,
Yeah.
okay, I'm focusing on this now because I literally have these other blocks of time that are available to me to do that other stuff. And so it is rare that I have anything that intrudes on the time that I have with him. And I do feel as if time just slows down. And what you were talking about, Jenny, in terms of like the cues, I mean, the more time you can spend in that focused interaction, the more you notice just with like the turn of a head, oh, he noticed that the ball wasn't in the bottom of the little wheelbarrow where it's supposed to be. Now he's going, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to walk over by the wood burner that I have surrounded with a little protective gate, and is he gonna? He's gonna look in there, and then he's gonna go over here, and after this amount of time, like he's gonna come over to me like where is it? And it's just and you see all of that. You see all of this communication and what he's looking for and what he's thinking and his face will light up because and just to be able to focus in on that is just a delight. It's a delight. And you need to not have those distractions. You need to, I mean, if I had my phone in my hand, I I wouldn't be seeing any of that or cueing in on it or responding to him or any of it. So and it does, it just slows down. Everything slows down. Of course, I've slowed down. We probably all slowed down.
I guess so, but it's just like, making all those things out of construction paper. Uh, it takes time, and you're sitting there, and it's this, and you don't have to have construction paper, because after they get to a certain age, like 3 years old, right around there, they're starting to use their own imaginations. And so I can hear Cooper talking to himself and like moving the pillows around. I was going to maybe write a post about construction paper, scissors, and a couch because he can just, they had this, what do you call it? Sectional, right? With about 12 pillows on the outside and about 10 small pillows. And he's like, let's make a pillow pool. And he throws them all in there. And then he's actually working on his diet, his jumping skills. He's sort of afraid to be in the water, but he's really good with the pillows. So by next summer. But they can do a lot with a couch and those pillows. And it's kind of like, that's this other idea of messiness. Just let them be messy for a little bit. And if, like, I guess we could be respectful of our kids and put the pillows back, after it's over with. That might be a way that we could get them to tolerate messiness if we clean it up. To let the kids just live a little bit, to be a little bit wild and crazy hopping on I guess you could tell I let my grandson do a lot of stuff on the couch, but
Yeah.
I try not to step on him myself because the weight of us can sort of mess it up. So I'm trying to just let him be on the pillows and not get yelled at for that reason. No, but they're great. They're great. My daughter and her son-in-law, her husband. But anyway, but yeah, that's good. These are good thoughts, I think. Um, and oh, my husband, Mark, you guys probably both know who he is. He said he's seen a number of things. One was on the People magazine website. I don't ever go on those, but he went on and he said that a grandmother goes over to her daughter's house unannounced and apparently goes in there and goes in the nursery and sort of adjusts stuff. And so I think it's this matter of respecting boundaries. I don't know what do you think about that, Meg? Do you tell your daughter that you're coming over?
Of, of course. And and she's working remotely, so the couple of days that a week that I have my grandson, she comes to the farm with him. And so if things, I I toddlerize the lower level of the house, which had gone through its various iterations as my kids got older, and it was more of an adult kids game room, pool table and that sort of thing. And then it's like, oh no, we're back to square one now. So back to the toddlerized room. So I do go to their house on occasion, but I just step into whatever the environment is that they have there. And then I've got him here, and so
Mm-hmm.
that works out just fine.
Okay, that's good. Do you have any thoughts about that, Jerry, about respecting the boundaries of your daughter's home, or how do you work it?
Yeah, no, I'd be excommunicated or killed if I just showed up. That wouldn't work. My daughter's a lot like me. She doesn't put up with that nonsense. Um, no, and they're very respectful, and it's reciprocity, right? They're very respectful of our time. Like,
Yeah.
like we have a play date, a sleepover on the 22nd. They've got a big function in the city, and now if you can you babysit? Don't worry if you can't. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. But and then I go look, let me check my calendar. Yeah, oh well, I can move some things. Yes, we can do it. So it's a win-win. But yes, of course, I mean that I have a feeling that the story you told, Meg, that sorry, Jenny, that's she's probably an outlier based on
Yeah.
everything I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he claims there have been other posts about people like nodding their heads and being like, yeah, that happens. So good.
Yeah,
I hope we aren't that thoughtless and
yeah.
clueless as a general rule.
No.
Um, and I wanted to tell you one more thing. I actually got involved in I instigated a little bit of a campaign against an ad that was, let's see, a Prime Video ad on DirecTV. I think that's what it was.
Mhm.
And grandparents were there and they opened up a note from their own children, the grown-ups. They were babysitting a kid who looked like about 14 months old. in a wind-up seat that rocks back and forth. And apparently the note said, just turn on the big TV and wind up the kid and face him toward the TV and just leave it alone. And kind of the implication was the grandparents like giving each other the wink, like, oh, good, now we don't have to do anything. And I thought it was an insult to the grandparents and to the parents, and tried to get that thing taken off the air. And I went to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry's media committee, and they wrote a letter. And I think they stopped that. But we have to understand. No, people don't understand yet, except your daughter's crew, that doing that is not the kind of environment that grows their brain and actually can send them back the other direction. And so it was just kind of insulting that grandparents depicted like that, I thought. But so we have to use some sense to make good choices and I guess be good examples. So as we wrap up, can we each say maybe one way we can be good examples?
I leave my phone in my office where I am now when Perry comes.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Oh,
Because she wants to play with it.
okay.
Because you know why she likes it? Because when they take her picture.
Oh, mhm.
Yes.
So whenever when the phone comes out and she smiles, so it's like she's already got that muscle memory built.
Oh my gosh. Well, but you also probably want to not distract yourself with the phone.
Correct. No, it's for me more than for her. Yeah.
Okay. You Meg.
Similarly, I usually have my cell phone in my pocket so that I've got it to take a picture, Jerry. But so I don't actually leave it in another room, but I do try and keep it out of sight. And I have to say, on the occasion where I've had him over on a Saturday, my Notre Dame football games will just have to wait until another time.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh, I thought you were
That's
gonna put.
wrong. That's wrong. No, no, no.
Nope.
Perry comes over and we did watch the Giants game, part of the Giants game one day because mom and dad were at the game, so we had to look for them in the stands.
Okay.
And she also has her Notre Dame regalia outfits, so we'll walk around the room and I'll pace and she'll play with me and we'll listen for sure.
You'll pace. At least you're in the room. Mark is out chopping wood out in the backyard. He gets so upset about it. So, well, sometimes I wonder about, I mean, being in the same room with a game. Well, I guess it's your attention, Meg. Our attention can be on the game. If we could be in the room and not pay attention to the game, then that'll work. I think the mere presence of a TV being on is not what does it. It's our attention.
Right. Well, I know that we now have options that we didn't have back in the day to watch the game. And so I don't have the TV on.
Mhm.
I don't have the TV on. Now it'll be interesting, like this Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Will it be on? I mean, he's almost 19 months now. Will we have a football game on? I'm trying to think. No, I don't think we will, but I guess we'll just see what happens. But no, I've missed a few games this season.
Well, on Saturday, we were babysitting Cooper all day. I mean, we were on the soccer field at 9 o'clock. He's 3 years old, but they have him in Discover Soccer. But I'll have to tell you that the coach was outstanding this time because one of the things Cooper and I were talking about this week were pirates. And then he was talking about good pirates and bad pirates. And I'm like, there aren't really that many good pirates because they steal. That's their thing. That's what they do. So I not really think there are any good pirates. So we were having these deep discussions about pirates. So we get to the field with the 3-year-old with these tiny people. And I didn't let my kids play sports until like kindergarten or later because I didn't want them in organized sports. But this Discover Soccer is, I think it's okay. I think it's not a bad thing. And this particular coach, Coach Patrick, said, "Okay, you're all pirates." And everything he did, he's like, "Okay, where's land?" And Cooper's like, "There." And they all started running toward the land, kicking their balls, and then they had to find buried treasure. And all of his analogies were, these kids are more engaged than they're not like, little molecules going in all different directions, which is usual. But anyway, I really have to give this guy credit for using his imagination to engage these kids. So it was really a beautiful thing. Um, but I don't know where I was going with that. So there you go. But um, it it's funny. Oh yeah, and keeping the TV on. Um, I think that kids can sort of frolic around. I think that like the 1 year old is not going to sit there and stare at a TV for very long in a crowd, especially with everybody wanting to pick her up and she's toddling around and everything. How fun. How great for her to have such a rich environment. It's really wonderful.
Because the TV will be on at Thanksgiving. It's always on.
Yes, yes, TV is an essential part of Thanksgiving.
Well,
Oh, what I was going to say was that I knew it would come back. That we did not. First of all, I don't know how to use my daughter's TV, so it was very silent all day. But I had my phone sitting on top of the counter, and I kept refreshing it. So I was watching the score and looking at all that stuff. So I would do it that surreptitiously, and it was fine. And I was watching Mark on the couch, who was watching it more closely, and I could see his face was sort of relaxed. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right, the game must be all right. Um, but anyway, so well, any other thoughts before we talk about whether we should continue getting together based on Thanksgiving and Christmas? Any more pearls of wisdom?
enjoy. This life is short.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And not be too pushy with the piano. Just introduce it. I might put put the stickers on the keys. But we're supposed to have my youngest is supposed to have a baby on Christmas Day in Atlanta,
Oh,
and my daughter's up in Washington, D.C. So we're gonna have a really weird Christmas, but great,
it'll be
wonderful.
fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so that'll be good. And how many total kids are you gonna have the grandkids are you gonna have, Meg, this Christmas?
We're still sorting out Christmas plans. Actually, Thanksgiving, we're gonna go because my son Kevin and his wife Courtney had a little one. And so we're gonna be going to Chicago this weekend because that is the weekend that would work too. So I'll be with all of my kids and all of the grandkids. So that's
And how many is that? 6?
6.
Suddenly a grandmother to 6 kids. That's beautiful. So anyway, what do you think? Do you think that we should continue doing this? I didn't get any notes from anybody about why this didn't work for them or whatever. But you know how busy people are. So
Sure.
what are your thoughts about whether we should continue getting together?
Um, if there's something new and interesting,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be fun to know. I mean, again, to the extent that there are things that I can share with
Mhm.
Megan Scott about how they're doing a good job and how they should think about these other things,
Mhm.
I'm all in for that. I don't know that we necessarily need to Zoom to do that. I mean, if you have stuff that you want to share, Jenny,
Mhm.
I'm a willing recipient.
Okay, and before you give your opinion, Meg, I'll say that I reached out to, uh, I told the leadership, the class leadership about this, and I told them that I was maybe gonna invite people who went to Notre Dame that didn't go to the reunion. That are follow Durable Human, which is my website, and invite them to see if anybody wanted to join. And so it's a matter of kind of doing that versus sort of not doing it. Or, so potentially if we got together again, I could invite like 50 other people that might want to show up from Notre Dame who might want to join us. So I'm not even sure about whether that's a good idea. Jerry Perez said he was going to join us tonight. I sent out a reminder, but he didn't make it.
Well,
And
he's
I
fired
understand
then, Jenny. That's that simple. He's
he-
fired.
he's fired. He's fired.
Where the hell is Terry? I'm going to send him a note when we get off.
I think you should, because Terry needed to hear some of this stuff, I think, that we could commiserate with him because he's trying to manage so many things now with his daughter's daughter. So Meg, all that said, what's your
Well,
opinion?
well, similar to Jerry's, like I think if we've got additional ideas, topics, I mean, I don't want to be putting a bunch of work on you, Jenny, but that you've done this work of you found a speaker before. Now we began this, and you had. I thought your slides were really interesting. Those 5 hours and the mind blowing. What was it? 1 million neural connections. It's like,
Yeah,
I mean, I have to set that one aside because I'll be like, oh my goodness,
that's
I
a
missed
lot.
that minute. I really didn't maximize that minute. So I just I think that that information is fascinating and reinforces why we're all doing what we're doing and why our children are doing what they're doing. So I'm on board with continuing. And I know I'm sure you had some thoughts in forming this group of, whether that was a direction you wanted to see it go or just having a group of people to kind of bounce different things off of. And I'm prepared to be part of that too.
Well, that's great because I actually am moving into next year that this group that I formed with a researcher from Drexel University in trying to raise awareness around the world about the environment of the baby and that a too much visual, too many screens in the environment can change the trajectory of the child's brain development, sometimes in a very negative way. And so we're trying to give FYIs, awareness alerts is what we call them. And I was even thinking of Meg's group of like looking at some of these like looking at an alert and being like, yeah, this makes sense, or I don't know, just having kid aware parents, taking a look. And I'm developing a card to hand out in the OB's office when they find out that they're pregnant. And on the front is like, hey, this is how I can thrive without screens, and you can too. And then have it very graphic. And on the back, talk about stresses of parenting. First of all, that there are negative associations with extended and frequent screen time. And there's a list of at least 8 areas long, and that yes, parenting is stressful, and giving a couple tips on how you can manage your own stress rather than just hand over a phone, which works. It is a pacifier, but it's also an addictive kind of a destructive thing that the parents can do, and they don't realize it. And we need to help parents understand it's, just bad, having chocolate bars all the time is not good for the baby's development. And it's the same with this hyper visual stimulation and the lack of other sensory stimulation. So where am I going with this? I guess I could even kind of bounce it off you guys. I could be like, hey, this is, what do you think of this? And would this be useful? Or I don't know. That's one thing we could do. And another thing is Karan, who's not here. She's got a lot on her plate as she wraps up the semester at AU, but she was talking about how do you talk to schools about screens in pre-K or kindergarten, when you really don't want it. And there are a lot of tools out there that do help. And there are words you can use to actually approach the administration. So there are a couple more things, that we can talk about if we want to.
I think a noble endeavor would be, and this might be too grandiose, but I think your last point makes the most sense to me in terms of how do you get, school administrators who on one hand are fighting or on one hand have a push to be more efficient, maybe doing more with less in terms of resources. So relying more on technology, And the other side of that coin is the detriment that that could potentially lead to for, their young students. I think an education, ironically, an education in the classroom for them, um, that sounds like a noble endeavor. I'd like to do something along those lines.
Yeah, because I could show you the kits. There's actually kits you can get access to, even for preschool, to try to enlighten the teachers about. For instance, even in preschool, they don't have to document everything with a camera. I mean, they give them permission not to have to document the child's whole day because it's distracting to the kid to have the pictures taken all the time. And they don't have to send you pictures every day. And that's just one of the things, is that at that age group, they need pure play. They really need to learn how to socialize and to use as many, messy art products as they can. That's what they need right now. Tech can wait. And to give them permission to be like, no, we want it this way, type of thing. We don't want the technology, and to have those conversations. And then, as you say, when you get into kindergarten, to help the administrators know there are people out there that care and they want to work with the school, perhaps not to lean so much on the online testing or testing using a keyboard. So yeah, if you're interested in that, maybe we could look at that for sure. Meg, do you have a sense for what you'd be interested in?
Well, I think the whole educational piece is really complicated because when technology was first coming along, I think there were some pretty good products out there. And again, I'm thinking more of a middle school and high school age students, not the younger ones, where it was interactive. I mean, kids could be working on math problems, and if they got something right, then they're given a more difficult question. I mean, these were good products that allowed for more individualized instruction of students. Um, but as with anything, then the market's going to get flooded with products of questionable quality. And how do you sort all of that out? And then you get the issue. So that's one issue that educators face. Then another issue that's faced is that you've got funding that comes along. So you've got really limited budgets and everything's really tight. And now there's an infusion of grant funding for technology-based instruction because that's was perceived whenever to
Mhm.
be the way to go. And so you've always got the funding kind of following the initial initiative, and then we learn more about it and where are we on all of this. So I mean, I think it's a really interesting area, um, and lots of complexities and nuance. So I would be very much interested in participating in those discussions because education law is what I did.
Ooh, ooh, brilliant.
Beautiful. You will be a wonderful sage on the stage for us there. Well, there's what changed really, Meg and Jerry, is that it used to be that software was just self-standing. It was just right there in the computer. But with Google Docs and many zillions of other products, they're connected to the internet. So now those third parties are actually taking the data from the students and storing it and using it to sell them products back. I mean, there's tons of abuse going on with companies and who are just taking advantage of the kids. And on smartphones, but also through Google Docs and other ways, kids are accessing YouTube. And the big story is the kids in the back row watching porn on the school issued laptop. And so it's just gotten to be a real mess. In recent years, schools are they're starting to put a lot of gates in there so that the kids can't see some of these things. But it's just hard to like plug all the holes with all the different software they use. Many schools use like hundreds of different types of software, and they're connected to the internet. And that's another mind-boggling thing besides the million neural connections, is like the thousands and hundreds of different types of software and all the stuff can go wrong. So, okay, all right. So this time we spent 2 months since our last get together. This is now mid-November. So, should we say January or February for our next get together?
February.
Talk about time flying. Yeah,
Yeah.
25. Yeah,
Okay.
February.
Okay, we'll do that. So a little later, I'll try to send around a doodle to see if people have any preferences for February. And I should be able to do it. We'll be gearing up for the release of the Worldwide Awareness Alerts, which is like creating something out of whole cloth that's never been done before. So I'm like, okay. But we got 26 countries,
That's
Bangladesh, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Kenya. Those are our like most active participants besides Germany and New Zealand. And so they all say that they're going to try to reach out to their health departments just to try to raise awareness.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Very cool, Jenny.
Yeah. So just
And
got to
remember, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
I guess so. I guess so. It's just, it all came on us so suddenly, and it was just impossible to really anticipate what a mess it would, how difficult it would be for the human brain to deal with the heavy duty technology. So, but anyway, thank you for making the time.
Oh, it's fun.
Thanks for organizing.
Yeah, thanks for organizing it, Jenny.
You're welcome. You're welcome, and have a great, how many
Yes.
holidays? I don't know. We might even get through Valentine's Day for all we know. So, but yeah, have a great time and really
Yes.
enjoy
Merry
every
Christmas.
minute.
Happy Thanksgiving, the whole
Yep.
9 yards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank
go
you.
Irish.
Take care.
That's right. We're looking pretty dang good.
That's it. Yes, 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 yes. All right, good night, everybody.
Okay.
All
Good
right. Take
Good night.
care.